So every time I'm on the train, some preacher has to get on the train and start quoting the Bible, pushing his religion, basically shoving his religion down our throats. And it's always a black preacher. I mean, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's always a black or Latino preacher. I mean, I know why. We could get into that later. But I'm saying, think about that. It's always a black or Latino preacher. Okay? And they're always shoving religion down our throat. And they're always giving us very specific verses out of this entire book. This book is very thick. But they're always giving you the same 5 or 6 verses that they're going to read to you. Okay? What verses are they not reading to you? Okay? In fact, before we go, let's look at this clip of this annoying subway preacher shoving his religion down our throat. Let's go look at that for a second.
It doesn't matter what life chose your way. When you're in Christ Jesus, you're divinely protected. In Psalms 46, it said, God is my refuge and strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. Therefore that I fear, though the earth be removed or the mountains be carried in the midst of the sea. For God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. In Christ you are divinely protected. Jesus said, he that reject my words, I liken to you as a foolish man, a foolish woman, which built their house in the sand. The rain descended and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon an house, and an house collapsed.
Now I always want to know, why do they only read 4 or 5 verses out of this entire book? What verses are they not reading to us? Okay, there's a lot of stuff in this book that's hideous. Okay, and they never want to read it to you. And today, I'm going to read these verses to you, and I'm going to show you why they only read these specific verses to you. Let's talk about slavery. Now, it's a fact that black Americans and Latino Americans got to this country through slavery. But that's also the way we got our religion, okay? Most black Americans and Latino Americans are Christians. Where did they get this religion from? They're slave masters, okay? Think about that, okay? This is why most of the preachers shoving this down your throat are black. They are regurgitating what their great-great-great-grandparents learned from their slave masters. That's it. I don't see white Americans on the train shoving this stuff down my throat. Okay? So, let's go into treatment of slaves, Exodus 21. Exodus 21, verse 2. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. If he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be freed with him. If his master gave him a wife while he was a slave, and they had sons or daughters, then only the man will be free in the 7th year. But his wife and children will still belong to the master. But the slave may declare, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I do not want to go free. If he does this, his master must present him before God. Then his master must take him to the door or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. An awl means like a nail. And the slave will serve his master. Verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, she must allow herself to be brought back again. But he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contract with her. But if the slave's owner arranged for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter. If a man who is married, a slave wife, takes another wife for him, he must neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. If he fails in any of these 3 obligations, he may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Think about that, black Christians. Okay. Deuteronomy. Warning against idolatry. Do you really follow the Bible? Do you actually follow the Bible, what it says? What if a Muslim knocks on your door or a Buddhist? What are you supposed to do? Deuteronomy 13, 6. Suppose someone secretly entices you, even your brother, your son or daughter, your beloved wife, or your closest friend, and says, "Let's go worship other gods, gods that neither you nor your ancestors have known." They might suggest that you worship the gods of people who live nearby or who come from the ends of the earth. But do not give in or listen. Have no pity and do not spare or protect them. You must put them to death. Strike the first blow yourself, and then all the people must join in. Stone the guilty ones to death because they have tried to draw you away from the Lord your God, who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the place of slavery. Then all Israel will hear about it and be afraid, and no one will act so wickedly again. That's pretty damn foul, ain't it? Now, where does racism come from? Where did humans get the notion that we are superior to these other humans in these other places? The people on this land are superior to people in the other land. Where did we get this notion from? I don't know. Let's take a look at this verse. All winged insects that walk along the ground are ceremonially unclean for you and may not be eaten, but you may eat any winged bird or insect that is ceremonially clean. You must not eat anything that has died a natural death. You may give it to a foreigner living in your town, or you may sell it to a stranger, but do not eat it yourself, for you are set apart to the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Here comes slavery one more time. If a fellow Hebrew sells himself or herself to be your servant and serves for 6 years, in the 7th you must set that servant free. When you release a male servant, do not send him away empty-handed. Give him a generous farewell gift from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Share with him some of the bounty of which the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I am giving you this command. But suppose your servant says, "I will not leave you," because he loves you and your family, and he has done well with you. In that case, take an owl, push it through his earlobe into the door. After that, he will be your servant for life, and do the same for your female servants. You must not consider it a hardship when you release your servants. Remember that for 6 years they had given you services worth double the wages of hired workers, and the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. Now, many of you are under this assumption that the God of the Bible is a peaceful, loving God. I beg to differ. He says it himself in his own book, if this is his own book. As you approach a town to attack it, this is instructions in the Bible, okay? This is instructions. As you approach a town to attack it, you must first offer its people terms for peace. If they accept your terms and open the gates to you, then all the people inside will serve you in forced labor. But if they refuse to make peace and prepare to fight, you must attack the town. Then the Lord, your God, hands the town over to you. Use your swords to kill every man in the town. But you may keep for yourselves all the women, children, livestock, and other plunder. You may enjoy the plunder from your enemies that the Lord your God has given you. But these instructions apply only to distant towns, not to the towns of the nations in the land you will enter, in these towns that your Lord your God is giving you as a special possession. So this sounds like extreme racism to me. This is God telling you, you have to go into another land and attack these people if they don't agree to what you say. And if they don't agree to what you say, you attack them, you kill them, their men, their women, and their children, and you take whatever you want. Sounds familiar? Sounds like slavery? When you are in the land the Lord your God is giving you someone who may be found murdered in the field, and you don't know who committed the murder. In such a case, your elders and judges must measure the distance from the site of the crime to the nearby town. When the nearest town has been determined, that town's elders must select from the herd a young cow that has never been trained or yoked to plow. They must lead it down to a valley that has not been plowed or planted and that has a stream running through it. There in the valley, they must break the young cow's neck. Then the Levitical priest must step forward, or the Lord your God has chosen them to minister before him and to pronounce blessings in the Lord's name. They are to decide all legal and criminal cases. Is this how we decide legal and criminal cases? By killing cows? Yeah, okay. The elders of the town must wash their hands over the young cow whose neck was broken. Then they must say, our hands did not shed this person's blood, nor did we see it happen. O Lord, forgive your people Israel, whom you have redeemed. Do not charge your people with the guilt of murdering an innocent person. Then they will be absolved of the guilt in this person's blood. Yeah, okay. Women's rights. What were women's rights in the Bible? Did women have rights in the Bible? Were they equal to men? Why don't you ask your preacher this? Why don't you ask the man on the train this, who likes to scream in your ear as you read the newspaper and try to do your Sudoku puzzles? Ask him this. Suppose a man has 2 wives. This is Deuteronomy 21, verse 15. Suppose a man has 2 wives, but he loves one and not the other, and both have given him sons. And suppose the firstborn son is the son of the first wife he does not love. When the man divides his inheritance, he may not give the larger inheritance to his younger son, the son of the wife he loves, as if he were the firstborn son. He must recognize the rights of the oldest son, the son of the wife he does not love, by giving him a double portion. He is the first son of his father's fertility, and the rights of the firstborn belong to him. You got that? Okay. Now let's go into Deuteronomy 22, verse 13. Suppose a man marries a woman, but after sleeping with her, he turns against her and publicly accuses her of shameful conduct, saying, when I married this woman, I discovered she was not a virgin. Then the woman's father and mother must bring proof of her virginity to the elders as they hold court at the town gate. Her father must say to them, I gave my daughter to this man to be his wife, and now he has turned against her. He has accused her of shameful conduct, saying, I discovered that your daughter was not a virgin. But here is the proof of my daughter's virginity. Then they must spread her bedsheet before the elders. The elders must then take the man and punish him. They must also fine him 100 pieces of silver, which he must pay to the woman's father because he publicly accused a virgin of Israel of shameful conduct. The woman will then remain the man's wife, and he may never divorce her. Verse 20, but suppose the man's accusations are true and he can show that she was not a virgin. The woman must be taken to the door of her father's home, and there the men of the town must stone her to death. So if a man marries a woman and he realizes she's not a virgin, she is supposed to be stoned to death. For she has committed a disgraceful crime in Israel by being promiscuous while living in her parents' home. In this way you will purge this evil from among you. If a man is discovered committing adultery, both he and the woman must die. In this way you will purge Israel of such evil. Imagine you try that shit today. 25 to life, that's all I could say. Suppose a man meets a young woman, a virgin who is engaged to be married, and he has sexual intercourse with her. If this happens within a town, you must take both of them to the gates of that town and stone them to death. The woman is guilty because she did not scream for help. The man must die because he violated another man's wife. In this way you will purge this evil from among you. Now this is my favorite one coming up. But if a man meets the engaged woman out in the country and he rapes her, then only the man must die. Do nothing to the young woman. She has committed no crime worthy of death. She is as innocent as a murder victim. Since the man raped her out in the country, it must be assumed that she screamed, but there was no one there to rescue her. So you're only not killing her because she's in a place where no one can hear her scream. What's a woman's rights in the Bible? What if a woman's raped? Deuteronomy 22, verse 28. Suppose a man has intercourse with a young woman who is a virgin but is not engaged to be married. If they are discovered, he must pay her father 50 pieces of silver. Then he must marry the young woman because he violated her, and he may never divorce her as long as he lives. Women's rights, part 2. If two brothers, okay, let me say, this is Deuteronomy 25, verse number 6. If two brothers are living together on the same property and one of them dies without a son, his widow may not be married to anyone from outside the family. Instead, her husband's brother should marry her and have intercourse with her to fulfill the duties of a brother-in-law. The first son she bears to him will be considered the son of the dead brother, so that his name will not be forgotten in Israel. So if two brothers live together and the brother dies, the other brother must marry his wife and have a child with him. This is verse number 9 in Deuteronomy 25. If two Israelite men get into a fight and the wife of one tries to rescue her husband by grabbing the testicles of the other man, you must cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Okay, and this is more instructions from God, our good and loving God. So they asked, this is Judges 21, verse 8 and 10. So they asked, who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mizpah when we assembled in the presence on the Lord? And they discovered that no one from the Jabesh Gilead had attended the assembly. For after they counted all the people, no one from Jabesh Gilead was present. So the assembly sent 12,000 of their best warriors to Jabesh Gilead with orders to kill everyone there, including women and children. This is what you are to do, they said. Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin. Among the residents of Jabesh, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. Salt in it. And he said, this is what the Lord says, I have purified this water. It will no longer cause death or infertility. And the water has remained pure ever since, just as Elijah said. Elijah left Jericho and went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, a group of boys from the town began mocking and making fun of him. Go away, bald man, they said. Go away, baldy. Elijah turned around and looked at them, and he cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of them. From there, Elijah went to Mount Carmel and finally returned to Samaria. So Elijah performed a miracle because 40 kids started to make fun of him and say he had a bald head. So he summoned the will of the Lord, who brought 2 bears out of the woods and ate the 42 boys, to kill the 42 boys. Loving God, okay. Some other verses here. This is the New Testament. So next time someone brings up the Old Testament excuse, first of all, if you don't believe in the Old Testament, then why do you follow the 10 Commandments? As soon as you say, I don't want to believe in the Bible, they bring up the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments is the Old Testament, which has all the slavery in it. So when they say, oh, this is the Old Testament, something new has happened because Jesus has came. Okay, fine. We're going to go to the New Commandment, the New Testament, which is when Jesus was here, if you believe. And we're going to read Ephesians 5, verse 7, about slavery in the New Testament. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. I'm going to say that one more time. This is the New Testament. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. Serve them sincerely as you would serve Christ. Try to please them all the time, not just when they are watching you. As slaves of Christ, do the will of God with all your heart. Work with enthusiasm as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will reward each one of us for the good we do, whether we are slaves or free. Masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Don't threaten them. Remember, you both have the same master in heaven, and he has no favorites. So is it really a surprise that blacks and Latinos are the biggest Christians in this nation, are the biggest Christians around the world, and we got our religion from our slave master? I'm going to read this verse to you one more time. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. Serve them sincerely as you would serve Christ. Try to please them all the time, not just when they are watching. As slaves of Christ, do the will of God with all your heart. Work with the enthusiasm as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will reward each one of us for the good we do, whether we are slaves or free. There goes your New Testament excuse. And this is from the New Living Translation Holy Bible. If you don't believe me, get your own Bible, the New Living Translation, open it up and read it for yourself. Or better yet, take it with you on the train and ask the preacher to explain these verses to you. I'm not a believer. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim either. Even though my name's Ali, don't be fooled by that. I just want people to take a moment and think about what you believe in. And do you actually believe this? Do you actually believe the Bible? How many verses do you know? You know the good verses. Do you know the bad ones? Racism, misogyny, slavery. It's no different here than anywhere else in the world. They tell us that only Christians go to heaven. And they say, do not kill. You were instructed to kill multiple times in this book. Multiple times. In fact, you know what? I forgot one verse. I forgot one of my verses. Instructions to kill. Then King Sihon declared war on us and mobilized his forces at Jahaz. But the Lord, our God, handed him over to us, and we crushed him, his sons and all his people. We conquered his town and completely destroyed everyone, men, women, and children. Not a single person was spared. We took all the livestock as plunder for ourselves, along with anything of value from the towns we ransacked. The Lord our God helped us conquer Aurora on the edge of the Arnon Gorge, and the town in the gorge, and the whole area as far as Gilead. No town had walls too strong for us. However, we avoided the land of the Ammonites, all along the Jabbok River and the towns in the hill country, all the places the Lord our God has commanded us to leave alone. So, black Christians, I want you to take a long, deep thought. I want you to think 3, 4, 5 times about this book that you believe in. This book you have on your shelf that you have not read. This book is in your house. It's in your hotel room. It's everywhere, and you have not read it. The first thing a Christian wants to do is rub the Bible in your face. Well, rub it back in his and ask him, why does the Bible say slavery is okay? Why does the Bible say rape is okay? Why does the Bible say marry your rapist? Why does the Bible say animal sacrifice is okay? Why does the Bible say to murder people who believe in other religions besides his own? And then turn around and say, thou shalt not kill. Is that a contradiction? The Lord commanded these people to go to another town and kill every man, woman, and children, but thou shalt not kill. Is this fact or is this fiction? You decide. This is Ali TV. Peace out.